Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Underground Kings podcast. Today, I'm joined by Anthony with Coastal Dog Training SC. Anthony, thanks for coming on, man.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
So we just met, what was it, like 2 weeks ago at a Charleston networking event.
Yeah, 2 weeks, because I've only been in Charleston 3 weeks, so.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Talk to me about what your journey has been. So I know you run a dog training business. Mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit about your journey leading up to starting this business, and then tell me about this move to Charleston.
Yeah. So I'm initially from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, born and raised, very blue collar town, coal mines, steel mills, all that kind of stuff. And then after high school, I was absolutely terrible at school, like hands down the worst. I just hated it so much. So I went to community college for a year after. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this college thing a try. And I hated it. I was miserable. I'm like, dude, I just don't want to go to class. And I remember I was at community college and I was walking out of a class, out of a test that I just failed, knowing I just failed it. And there was an Army recruiter standing there. And he talked to me, and I was already mad. And he talked to me, and he was like, hey, like, just come on down. Like, I'd love to, like, show you some stuff. I'm like, all right. So I went down to the Army recruiter. He showed me this, like, sweet YouTube video of, like, kicking down doors and, like, doing all kinds of cool shit. And he was like, what would you do if I told you that I will pay you to travel the world and blow shit up? And I'm like, done. 19-year-old me, I'm like, man, that's the greatest thing. Why doesn't everybody do it? And then slowly realizing later why everybody doesn't do it. But so I signed my Army contract in like November of 2010. And then I left for basic training like February 2011. So I was in the Army for 4 years. And my last duty station was El Paso, Texas. Desert, literally nothing there, but it was a blast. I met hands down the greatest people that I think I ever will meet in my life. And some of my friends I haven't seen in 11 years, 10 years, something like that. But we'll still talk here and there. And it's just incredible. I still travel to go see some here and there, which is really nice. And then it was like 3 months before I got out of the Army, one of my best friends there and his girlfriend, or excuse me, his wife, were like, hey, we're going to go check out dogs. Do you want to come? I'm like, heck yeah. So we went and we found, they didn't find anything. And I saw this gold looking, cutest little thing in the world. I'm like, oh my God, like I want this dog. So we ended up, got the dog. He stayed with my friend for 3 months because I was still living in the barracks and he was married. So he had a house outside. And day I got out of the Army, I picked him up from my friend's house. We drove 32 hours from El Paso, Texas, back to Pittsburgh. He was a 6-month-old puppy, and I'm like, goodness gracious, it was a lot. But we got back to Pittsburgh, and his name's Gilly. He's a German Shepherd, and he's been hands down like the greatest thing on the face of the planet. But when I got back to Pittsburgh, I very quickly realized I have a 6-month-old German Shepherd, and I have no freaking idea what I'm doing right now. So back in Pittsburgh, one of the kids I went to high school with, his name was Vinny. He had a dog training company. So I would reach out to him. He helped me with a lot of stuff with Gilly. And then I was working at a medical supply company for like as soon as, probably like a month after I got out. I took a month off from getting out of the Army to actually starting working to try to adjust, because the adjustment from getting out of the military to readjusting to civilian lifestyle, I guess you could say, is tricky. It's hard. And there was a lot of ups and downs and stuff. And Gilly was just a godsend. I mean, he was there with me all the time. He was a great companion. He didn't ask for anything in return. Like, he was always there. We did everything together. We went to Dairy Queen on Sundays together. We did all this kind of cool stuff. So that I started working with Vinny, and he helped me out a little bit. And we used to go to his parents' farm, and we would let the dogs run around, kind of just hang out. And I was 2 months into this medical supply company. And I remember we were just sitting there talking, and I was like, dude, I am so freaking miserable. Like, I hate it. I wake up every morning, I'm like, I cannot sit behind a desk 9 to 5. Logically, in my head, I'm like, okay, I did the Army lifestyle, right? So crazy, chaotic, all this stuff. I need a 9 to 5. Cool, calm, collective, clock in, clock out, bring a lunch pail with me. I'm like, this is going to be great. I freaking hated it. It was the worst thing in the world. And he was like, dude, why don't you come work with me? I'm like, I can work just playing and training dogs all day? He's like, yeah. I'm like, if you're serious, I don't care how much you pay me. I will literally quit tomorrow.
Wow.
Next day I walked into work and I quit. And that was a little over 6.5 years ago. So he took me under his wing, and he's been a fantastic mentor to me. Taught me so much, introduced me to so many cool people. And I worked in Pittsburgh for about 4 years, and I'm like a freaking nomad. I like change, and I like to travel and do all this stuff, especially being in the Army. You get to travel, you get to meet cool people, see all these cool places and stuff. And Pittsburgh is a special place. So it's, like I said, very blue collar. And it's so funny because people from Pittsburgh complain about it all the time. They're like, we hate it here, so on and so forth. But like you, someone not from Pittsburgh, if you come in and say the same exact thing I'm saying, you're fucked. Yeah. Like, they're like, dude, we're going to kill you. Don't ever talk about Pittsburgh like that again. And then I'll say the same exact thing. But I was just looking for something different. I'm like, you know what? I just don't want to be in Pittsburgh anymore. And one of my best friends from the Army, his dad lived in Nashville, Tennessee. And every year for the 4th of July, we would go visit him because we had the 2 weeks off. So we'd go to the Nashville, Tennessee 4th of July, and from the first time I went there, I absolutely fell in love with it. I'm like, you know what? One day I'm going to move here. So I went to Vinny, my boss, and I told him, I was like, hey, I want to leave Pittsburgh. I want to go down to Nashville. I was like, I'll start you a franchise or a branch or whatever you want to call it. But I am going to do it. And he was like, go. I'm like, done. Let's do it. So this was 2 days before Thanksgiving, and I texted my dad and my sister the day before Thanksgiving, the night before Thanksgiving, and I texted him like, hey, by the way, I'm not going to be at Thanksgiving dinner. I'm driving down to Nashville for a few days. And they were like, what the hell are you doing? So I went down to Nashville for a few days, just checking everything out, making sure like this could actually be something that we could do. And came back a few days later, and I had a meeting with Vinny, and I'm like, hey, we're doing it, man. I have no idea if this is going to work, but like, we're doing it. So I kind of made it official in like January that we were moving down. January 1st, we made the announcement we were going to do it. And end of February, I was in Nashville.
Wow.
I had a house. I had, all this stuff. So, and towards the the beginning of March, I moved down to Nashville, Tennessee, and I stayed in Airbnb for a month because my house was still on the market. So I'm in an Airbnb in Nashville while my realtor is doing all this stuff to sell my house. And then I got back to Pittsburgh the first week of April just to finalize the sale of my house, closed on my house, packed all my shit, put the dog in the car, and drove down to my apartment in Nashville. I was home for like 4 days or so. And Nashville is great. It's a really cool place. It's great to visit. It's very expensive. It's a very party lifestyle, which is fine. I don't give a shit what you do. I just don't want to do it. And I always said, like, if I ever move again, I'm moving to a beach. So Florida, way too freaking hot. Definitely not doing that. California, way too far. Definitely not doing that. Well, Charleston. I got family and stuff here, so I'm like, you know what? I'm doing it. And like I said, Vinny has been absolutely fantastic throughout the whole process. Him and I still communicate on a regular basis. He helps me with a lot of stuff. He's been a fantastic mentor to me. But I was like, you know, I kind of want something just for myself. So moved down here about 3 weeks ago, and I'm like, you know what? We're doing it. Took a few weeks off in between, get like the LLCs, all that kind of stuff in order, and then moved down. I'm like, here we go. We're gonna see how this works. So that's kind of the whole lifestyle.
So now you're out on your own doing your own thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you're probably learning or relearning. I'm sure you have a mentor. You have someone that you can ask certain questions. I got to do LLC filings, liabilities, all this shit. So what are some of the things that are hitting you in the face as you're starting this first venture of your own? What are some of the things that are really coming up that are just like, man, I had no idea this was involved? Or
yeah, so honestly, it was more like I said, when I got down to Nashville, I was like I ran the Nashville branch, but he was very particular on doing like the Google stuff and basically a lot of the back end stuff, like I would do like some financial stuff and whatnot, but like the actual business back end stuff, I didn't really have to do. So I focused on like just this branch and training dogs. It was great. And then I come here and I'm like trying to get like the Google page up and the maps up, and like I'm trying to run a Google ad and I'm like, I think I did it, but then I look and I didn't do it. So I'm like, I just fully prepare myself. And I'm like, you know what? I'm probably going to spend a good amount of time on my phone with a help desk somewhere, just trying to walk me through everything. But yeah, luckily I have a website, and the person who does my website for me been super helpful answering questions. I've talked to you a lot, and you've been a godsend. I'll always text random stuff like, dude, I have no freaking idea what I'm doing. But I think that's a big thing of the entrepreneurship journey is, I think, in my personal opinion, it's two things. It's being comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Where it's like, I have no problem admitting that I am clueless. Like I have no problem asking for help. Like if I don't know how to do something, which is, like I said, more the social media stuff and whatnot, I'm like, hey, I'm like a monkey on a keyboard. Like I have no freaking idea what I am doing when it comes to social media, and I have no problem like, hey, can somebody help me here?
Right.
And then it's just the roller coaster of emotions where it's like I said, you wake up one morning, you're like, what the heck am I doing? I have no security. I have no anything. And then later on that day, you're like, oh, this is great. This is gonna work out. Right. And 3 hours later, like, nope, it's gonna fail. Oh God. And we start freaking out. So it's been a journey for sure, but I think it's just cool to have something that's yours. Right. So, and one of my things is basically I always tell myself that I'm just too stupid to fail. Like you can't, like, I'm just so dumb that I cannot accept failure. I'm like, at some point this thing is going to work. I'll keep trying everything. And a lot of the marketing stuff, which marketing is a very strong suit. I can talk to a brick wall. I'm very good with people. So I get to talk to a lot of people. So when I go to like different dog stores and shelters and rescues and things like that, like I have no problem talking to anybody like that. But it's so funny because then anytime I get a camera on my face, I'm like, and I kind of freeze up. But yet, like, we would hold group classes. There'd be like 50 dogs there, 50 people and stuff. Like I have no problem talking there. But as soon as they're, and not necessarily like if I'm being filmed, that's fine. But if I have to make my own video, like if I put the tripod up, put a camera in front of me and I sit here and talk to it, I'm like, and I'll just start stuttering. So that's, I think it's another big thing is realizing your weaknesses. Realizing where you're like, we're like, this is just not my strong suit, which sucks that social media is not one of my strong suits because it's such a big thing, obviously, as you know. It's just a freaking roller coaster, but it's fun. It's fun.
That's cool, man. I mean, social media wasn't my strong suit either. I remember when I was like first getting started, had first launched my agency. I was still in college at the time, probably like 20, 21 years old. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I'm like trying to like sell like content, social media stuff to other people around the country. I had no businesses really in my small town I grew up in. So I was like DM outreaching to people, like businesses in California and Florida, just places I knew of. And I was like, well, shit, like if I'm going to be selling this shit, I better be doing it. So I'll never forget like the first time I ever uploaded like a video of myself online, and it was like, ended up being like a 6-minute rant. And I went back in the woods behind my parents' house and like walked this trail that we had, this like 1/4 mile. I would just pace it, talking to my phone. I probably recorded that 6-minute video 17 times. And it was like, finally, it was funny because the thing that brought me to post it, because it was never perfect. Every time was different. It was just a different fuck up somewhere in there. And what eventually got me to post it was just, I finally got so angry. I was like drenched in sweat, just fucking pissed off. And I was like, I am not recording this fucking thing again. I was like, we record and then it gets posted and never watch it. And I actually made that's how I got started in doing video content online, is I had a policy for myself. I would record content and upload it to my social media accounts and never, ever, ever watch my videos. And it just stopped bugging me. and I wouldn't even watch like the comments or what people would say. And then 3 months later, I'd have like somebody who hadn't seen me in a while come up and be like, dude, I fuck with your videos. Like, I really like the stuff you're talking about. And I'm like, oh, cool. You know, it's just like, sometimes you just have to just do and not, it's when we get caught up thinking about like the repercussions.
Yeah. And like, and I think that's a huge thing is, for me specifically, like I get in my head a lot, especially when I do like anything in front of a camera. I'm like, all right, this thing's going to be there forever. Like it has to be absolutely perfect. And I've tried, I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many times I've tried editing videos, putting like, you know, little captions in where they like fade away and like adding music and putting like voiceovers and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know if there's like something in my brain that doesn't work when it comes to that. So now, like anytime I post a video, I don't do any editing. I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to make this a little shorter. I'm going to cut out the beginning and I'm going to cut out the very end and it goes up. Yep. Like there's no subtext. There's no, you know, anything like that. It's just, well, I very much so realized that I cannot do this on my own. So I'm like, you know what? I can cut the end and cut the beginning and it goes up. Yep. Videoing's just never been a strong suit of mine. Social media in itself has just never been a strong suit of mine. Because there's some people who like, you know, want to blow up on social media and do all this kind of stuff. Me personally, I don't really care to blow up on social media. I don't care to go out and get recognized and people ask to take pictures and things like that. I'm just like, you know, I just want my social media to do well, that I get people that want me to train their dog and then I can go train their dog. I don't care if, you know, I ever get asked for a picture or anything like that. Like I like to differentiate and separate work from personal life. I had a personal account for a while, like Instagram and stuff. And I just like, all right, I can barely run one. I'm not running like all of these. Cause there was a point that I had like between like, I had like a couple business accounts on the Instagram and then I had the TikTok and then I had a Threads and I'm like, dude, there's like 7 accounts. I can barely run one, let alone like 7 accounts. So, and for me personally, I'm a very simple person. I don't need I don't care for the flashiness. I don't care for any of that. I'm like, dude, straight to the point, like dumb it down, kindergarten this shit for me as much as you can. And like, that's my style. So especially when I was going into like creating the website and things like this, like I was talking to a bunch of people like, oh, like, do you want to do like I said, like as soon as you click and it comes up like, hey, fill this out and then it fades and all this, like, no, simplify that thing, put like 5 freaking pictures on there, like just get to the point, give a few bulletins and like just that's how I want it to be. Cause like I said, for me, it's just, I'm a very simple person and I like things as simple as humanly possible. And I think one of the big things, have you ever heard of Eric Thomas? He's like a motivational speaker. Yep. I have been watching him for, goodness, it's had to been like 10 years. I am just so fascinated by this guy. Obviously, he has a great story and everything, but I really love that he does both. Like I said, he got his doctorate, all this kind of stuff, just so he can talk to Fortune 500 companies and he can, you know, talk to people in jail and all this stuff. But one of the things that I really like about him and then that I really try to incorporate in my own life is just be yourself. You know, like if a Fortune 500 company would reach out to him, and he's talked about this so many times that they'll reach out to him like, oh, you can't wear your Jordans, your backwards hat, your whatever. Okay, well then I'm not doing it. And that's how like I like to kind of think about it as well. It's like, hey, I am what I am. I'm me. Some people like it and some people don't. And I think that's totally fine. And especially when it comes to the dog training aspect, I do things a certain way. And there's a majority of people who are like, hey, that way doesn't really work for me. That's totally fine. I'll adjust and we can kind of come up with a middle ground. But there's some people like, no, I won't do it. Cool. You know, there's 1,000 other trainers who do it so many different ways. And there's not one way to train a dog. It's more just, hey, what works best for the human and what can the dog kind of grasp on the most? And then you go that route. And I'm fully okay with people who reach out and they're like, hey, I want you to do this, but you can't do X, Y, and Z. All right, we can try it, but there's, I think, other trainers that would probably suit you a little bit better. And I don't take any offense if people are like even if people have worked with me for a bit and they're like, I kind of want to go a different route. I want to try maybe just like positive only, they'll call it. Go for it. let me know if you need anything, and you want to reach back out in 6 months or whatever, and you want to try this again, like, we'll do it. I take absolutely no offense to it, especially some like rescues stuff that I've talked to in Charleston. Like, oh, like, just so you know, like, we do work with, this trainer, this trainer, this trainer. Fine. You guys probably deal with thousands of dogs a year. Like, I'm very good at what I do, but there's no way I'm taking care of thousands of dogs, so I have absolutely no problem. And I obviously didn't get into dog training to be a millionaire. I like what I do. And, obviously the saying, you love what you do, you never work a day in your life kind of thing. I'm fine with that. I donate a majority of time, so much time back to organizations and things like that. There's some like vet offices that have reached out and like, hey, can you come do, train our staff for an hour? Sure. I don't, the majority of the time I don't charge them. Rescues, I donate hundreds of hours a year. Being a veteran, I used to do every like Memorial Day, Veterans Day, things like that. I'd hold like a big group class, and I would run it for free. And in order to come, you pay $25, $30, $35, like whatever I would charge. And we would get it into a Venmo account. And what I would do is however much it was in the Venmo account, I would equal it. I'd match it. So say there's $200 in it. Great. I'll put another 200. And then I donate it all to last one was Rescue 22 Foundation that we did. So I'm all about giving back to the community. I just don't care to be a millionaire. I don't need flashy houses. I don't need nice stuff. I'm a very simple person. So the amount of time that I probably donate back to the community and or just doing fun, cool things, even if I don't make any money, I think it's great. I love just giving back. I think, Charleston has already given me so much. People were extremely friendly. They're very nice. So I'd love to give back, especially Pittsburgh, where, my hometown is at, try to give back there as much as we can. So I think it's incredible.
I think that's really the best way to play long term. Like, I mean, it's oftentimes, I know, like for me, sometimes like having someone, you talked about having like clients leave you or like go to a different trainer or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I've known my fair share of business owners that get spiteful or get nasty when someone's on their way out the door. I'm the same way as you. Like, it's like, I just want what's best for you. If you think that that's the better option, like, I'm all for it. Let me know if you need help even getting to that next stage. And more often than not, one, you preserve the relationship maybe that you have with that person. And then second of all, more often than not, they end up coming back to you, or they have a question for you or whatever it is. And mm-hmm. It's like building a business from the perspective of just like being yourself, being authentic. Like, hey, like, this is me. If you want to work with me, that's cool. If you don't, that's also completely fine with me. And I'll help you find someone that maybe matches with you better. And then giving back is huge. I mean, obviously that's important. I very much like to give back to the youth, like young men in the area that kind of like want opportunity, want whatever. I had this one young kid recently come to me and he goes, hey man, I got a big ask. And I'm thinking like, you need money? What do you
want
need?
A job? Like it's something.
What do you need? And he's like, I was wondering if I could do an unpaid internship for you. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Why not?
It's like, it's so important though to give back to the community that you're building a business in, mm-hmm. because it's like I've said it before on a prior podcast with someone where it's like, who am I not to give when everything that I have is because someone was once willing to give it to me.
100%. In my opinion, like kind of to touch on what you were saying, there's so much negative in the world. I don't need to add to it. There's plenty to go around. I don't need to make it any worse. And I've had trainers do the same thing. Trainers will reach out like, hey, I'm looking into getting into dog training. I would love to like shadow you for a few weeks. Like, this is how much I can pay you and stuff. I'm like, dude, if you want to come, just let me know. I'm not going to charge you anything. Like I said, I don't care to make a whole bunch of money. Because same thing, like Vinny took a chance on me. I knew absolutely nothing about dog training. We got into it, and he just kind of brought me on, showed me the ropes and everything. And that was just a huge turning point in my life. Especially getting out of the military, I was searching for some sort of what the heck am I going to do with the rest of my life now? Yeah. Some sort of purpose in life. And I'm like, I obviously can't sit behind a desk. And like I said, Gilly, my shepherd, has done so much for me that I'm like, you know what? I want to give people what Gilly has given me. Like, I want to be able to get you that relationship that you can do all this stuff with your dog, because it is a companion. It's part of your family and stuff. I want you to be able to take your dog to the breweries and the coffee shops and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, if the dog's not well behaved enough, it becomes more of a chore and a nuisance to have a dog. That's not the reason, right? You get a dog so you can do all the same shit that you do on a regular basis, but with a companion. So when I have trainers reach out, they're like, hey, I would love to shadow you. All right. Like, let me know when you're like, what's your availability? And they're like, oh, I can do, Thursday evenings. Great. I have an appointment here Thursday at 5:30 in this area. Like, if you want to come, let me know. And I don't ever charge anybody for it. Right? Because especially like getting started is, I'm sure, like the hardest part in any aspect, right? You just need somebody to give you a chance. Somebody to take that chance on you to be like, hey, I'm not going to ask for anything in return, but I want you to do well in life. And you can make such a difference in the world just by giving somebody a chance. Because here's the thing, it's not going to hinder my abilities in any way, shape, or form, having somebody sit here and watch me do what I do. Whether this person's here or not, what I do and how I operate is not going to change. But it gives this person an immense amount of knowledge and experience and all this kind of stuff that why would I not do it? And if they're starting, like obviously starting business takes a lot of money. Not a lot of people have all this extra money that they can just, spit out here and there to be like, oh, I want to learn. I'll teach you whatever you want. I have no problem. I love working with other trainers. And I think that's a big thing is in any industry, there's so much competition and stuff. It's like, in my opinion, in the dog training world, there's so many dogs. Like, if you don't think that there's enough for everybody to eat, you're crazy. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of dogs that get adopted per month, right? Even just here in the state of South Carolina, there's probably 5,000 dogs a month that get adopted. Okay. 5,000 dogs in 1 month. No one person is going to handle it. No two people are going to handle that, right? So I love giving people a chance, because a lot of times that's all it takes. You get one chance, you get that start, and something from that one chance gets you your, paid internship, and then you work your way up, and now you're like head trainer and eventually owner maybe and stuff like that. So a lot of times that's all it takes. And in my experience here, that's been the hardest part, is just getting that chance. Like it took a while for someone to just give me that chance to be like, hey, I'll let you do it. And then once you get that one chance, a lot of times it just kind of snowballs after that and you really get started. So I think that one chance can be a huge game changer.
Talk to me a little bit about that, going back to that purpose proponent of it, and you wanting other people to have the relationships with their dogs that you're able to have with yours. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about the relationship that you have with your dog and what it's meant to you. Like, what's kind of like the purpose for you behind that, and what about that inspired you to, go into that realm of work and create that for other people?
So that's a great question. I don't think anyone's ever actually asked me that. Like I said, when I got out of the Army, I moved back home to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I had no purpose. I had no drive. I had no anything. I was just trying to acclimate to a very, very different lifestyle. And being alone in that aspect would have been way more challenging than it already was. So I think having Gilly there with me gave me that sense of purpose, because there was a lot of, like dark times, I would say, where I'm like, I don't feel like getting out of the house. I don't feel like doing anything. Like, I just want to sit in bed all day. But having that dog with me forced me to get out of that slump, I guess you could call it, where I would have to get out every day because I'd have to walk him. I'd have to train him. I'd have to take him out, to do all this stuff. And we just built such an incredible bond together that we started exploring. We started doing all these different kinds of things. And that actually forced me to create a bucket list. So I created this bucket list of, I think there was like 35 things total that I'm like, all right, at some point in this dog's life, him and I are going to do this. We're going to go camping. We're going to go hiking. We're going to do cross-country road trip. We're going to do, all this kind of stuff. And And it actually wasn't up until recently that we checked the last item off the bucket list. So this bucket list has been in process for 8 years. And his last bucket list item was take him to the beach.
That's awesome.
So that's what I said. I was like, you know what, the last place I'm going to the beach. And I took him to the beach, and my goodness, he's old and grumpy, and but I took him to the beach, and he was like a little kid again. And that just made me feel absolutely incredible. Giving this dog the life that he deserves because he's always been there for me. You know, he's never talked back to me. He's never, you know, done any of that. He's just like, hey, dude, like, I just want to hang out with you, be part of your life and things like that. And like I said, having that dog forced me to get out of this slump and get out of this dark time that I was having at that point. And I think it was just, we developed something that I didn't even know was possible. I've had dogs growing up and stuff, but they were my family dogs. They weren't really mine to like take care of. So Gilly was my first dog that was like my specific dog, taking full ownership responsibility of it and stuff like that. So once we got that, and just doing things with the dog helped me so much in building this relationship with him that, like I said, we would travel the US. We would, you know, go camping for a weekend. We would, you know, try different parks to go hiking and stuff like that. He isn't as mobile as he used to be. So those things, glad we got those out early. But it's just great to like come home to a dog, and it's just like, I had such a terrible day, and you know, and because we have, honestly, I'll never have in my life another dog that I have like him. And everyone has that. If you have a dog, you know that there's one dog in your life that is going to stand out the most to you, and you're never going to have another dog like that. Even if I got the same exact breed and things like this, it is not going to be that dog. Gilly is that dog. I know for a fact I'll never have another one like him. I'll never have the relationship that I have with him with any other dog, even if I get same breed, same everything. So he's helped me really kind of live in the moment and cherish these certain things that without having that companion, you probably wouldn't, right? Because the majority of people are on their phones so much and things like that. So when we go out, it's just him and I, and, you know, I talk to him. I know, obviously, he has no freaking idea what I'm saying. Dude, I'll come home, like, he's excited to see me. I tell him about my day. You know, we'll hang out outside, and I just get enjoyment just sitting outside, you know, watching him kind of sniff around, sunbathe, just lay there, and I just, you know, I'll sit outside, do some computer work, and it's just such a comforting thing that I look over, and he's, you know, passed out in the chair, just looking like a big idiot, and I'm like, this is great. And the great thing about dogs is they don't talk back. That's why I don't work with humans as much. No, I'm just kidding. But I think that they can just offer things that human beings can't. And I think it's just the most beautiful thing in the world. And that gave me purpose. Like I said, when I got out of the Army, I had no purpose. I had no passion. I had no anything. I went to school to be a cop, and my dream at that point was I was going to be like a FBI agent or something like that. And then I changed majors, and then I was going to be like, you know what? I want to own a restaurant. And I'm like, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to be a athletic trainer. And like, I just kept flip-flopping. I had no real idea what I wanted to do. And that's why the military sounded kind of cool. Cause I'm like, yeah, at least gives me something that I could do. So then when I got out and I had him, I'm like, you know what, and I will train dogs until I'm old and gray and literally physically cannot do it anymore. Whether I make, you know, $500,000 a year, or basically I just need enough to live. If I have enough to live, I will do this for the rest of my life. There's no doubt. And I do this full time. I do this 24/7. I love what I do. And I think it's just the most incredible thing. And like I said, I want to be able to give people that. And especially because I deal with a lot of behavioral dogs as well. So I've dealt with, you know, some clients that they have a dog and they have a little kid, and, you know, the dog bit the kid in the face, and we put 6 stitches across its face, and they're at a crossroad of a huge dilemma in their life where it's like, I love this dog and this dog means the world to me, but now it comes down to the safety of my child, right? And it's, who do you pick? And I don't want to pick, right? I want to be able to, hey, can I make this dog coexist with this human? And that's what kind of really got me into it, where I started getting more tougher cases and things like that. And that's what gives me that sense of self-fulfillment where it's like, hey, these people have had this dog for 5 years and they were, trying to get rid of it and things like that. And now, 2 years later, dog and kid are, they're doing great together and so on and so forth. So I like the harder cases. I still do like the puppy training and happy-go-lucky dogs, but the sense of purpose really gives me those tough dogs where it's like, hey, I'll have people reach out. Hey, you're the 5th freaking trainer that I've reached out to. Like, if you can't fix this dog, it's gone. Let's go. That gets my blood pumping. I'm like an Energizer freaking bunny whenever that stuff comes up. I'm like, dude, let's rock. Let's do it. And I think that I add certain things that some people don't. Like I said, I absolutely love what I do, and I think it's the greatest thing in the world. So, I could be gone for 10 hours a day working, even though I'm just kind of playing with dog stuff, so it's pretty cool. And then I'll get home, and I have no problem doing, I'll do phone calls for 2 hours. I'll be on social media. I'll do, answering emails and stuff. So, like, my days are 12, 14 hours, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But if I was doing anything else for 12 to 14 hours, I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I hate it. It's stupid. I'm done. So I think just given that sense of purpose that I actually found something that I can make a career out of and do for the rest of my life, that I think that's the coolest thing ever. And I think everyone should chase whatever dream they have, especially if you're younger. There's I think it's 80% of small businesses fail within the first year or something like that.
Yeah.
There's only one way that you're going to know if you failed. If you do it. You could do it and fail, and everyone's like, oh, I just wasted all this. Like, no, you didn't. Because if you didn't try it, you're going to go the rest of your life thinking, man, I wonder if that actually would have worked. And for me, I do very bad with ifs. I don't like the if factor, where it's like, if I really want to know that bad, I'm going to do it. Right. And that's going back to the too stupid to fail kind of thing, where it's like, well, this is probably the most asinine idea I've ever had, but I'm actually very curious if this is going to work or not. So I'll do it. And obviously I've had as I'm sure you, very fair share of failures. But same thing. Is it a failure? Is it a mistake? Or is it a lesson learned? Right. And I think it's all about how you kind of view the things that you have to go through and stuff. Where are you viewing this as a mistake? Or are you like, hey, all right, next time I do this, definitely don't do that. That did not work. So I try to view things, and I'm human, so obviously it doesn't happen every time, but I try to view things as much as a lesson learned as I can. I think everything forms you into the person that you are, and I'm all for just taking that shot. Like I said, I wanted to be an FBI agent, and now I'm training dogs. So it's like, just go for it, man. Do what makes you happy, whether you make a whole bunch of money or not. Just go for it. I would much rather do something that makes me happy and make very little than do something I absolutely hate and make millions of dollars, right? And it comes down like, hey, does money actually buy happiness? Money can probably buy you cool shit. I don't know. I've never been a millionaire. I don't know if it actually would make me happy or not. But yeah, it'll buy you cool stuff. But same thing with, like I said, I'm a very simple person. I don't do materialistic things. I wear the same 5 outfits, the same 5 t-shirts in my closet. I'm very, black t-shirt, something like that. Like, I'm a very simple person. So that stuff I know money would not make me happy. Like I said, if I have enough to live and maybe go on a vacation once a year, that's really all I need, and I just think, why not?
Yep.
Like I said, I can always go back to college if I want to, get a degree, get that high paying job, do all this kind of stuff, so it's like, hey, I personally don't have any kids or anything. So I'm like, you know what? Might as well do it now. I got my dogs, coolest things ever. Let's see how far this can go. 6.5 years later, here I am. So I think we're doing pretty well right now. So what about you? Like you said, you kind of got into the social media stuff. And like I said, I am the absolute worst when it comes to social media. Everyone's like, dude, if you were just so much better on social media, like your business would do so much better. I'm like, I know, but I fucking hate it so much in this world. So what made you think like, hey, like I can actually, this is what I'm going to do?
Dude, it was like me trying out 1,000,001 things. Similar with you, like my head bounced all around. when I was a senior in high school, I had set out a full roadmap for like 2 years in my entire senior year leading up. The whole roadmap got accepted to like the top college locally to go for mechanical engineering. And that was like the route I wanted to go. And then towards the end, I was actually, I was talking to a Marine Corps recruiter because I wanted to go the ROTC route. And I wanted to do, basically what I wanted to do is they came to me, they said, we will pay for your tuition to go to this nice school for a really good mechanical engineering degree that I knew I couldn't afford. And they would pay for it. And then I would get to go and get on the job experience as basically a Marine Corps engineer or whatever it was, working on base, doing whatever. And I was like, this sounds fucking awesome. And I also like was very much okay with the idea of like going into the military, the discipline, like that component. I just would have thrived in that environment. I knew that. So I was all set up to go that route. Had like took all the tests, you know, did the ASVAB, like the placement, all this shit. Man, I was lined up. All my college applications were ready to be submitted, and I had mechanical engineering on all of them. And the day of submission, actually a girl in my class had done the whole college applications for me because she knew I wouldn't do them. And I just didn't give a shit. And I had it all for mechanical engineering, whatever. And on the day of submission, I just, for some strange reason, I said, change it to business. She was like, what? I was like, change it to business and press submit. Okay. Boop, boop. No idea what the fuck I was doing. I go home the end of that day. I tell my dad. He's like, what in the fuck? Like, what are you thinking? And like, I don't know. I want to go for business. Okay, whatever. So I go. I get to college. I'm like, this is stupid as hell. Like, this is just, I'm paying money for this shit. Like, these guys are, I'm in a core marketing class and we're learning how to design fucking flyers. And I look around and all my peers are on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. I'm like, this is what you want to spend your time teaching us? So I realized it was very useless. Started the business while I was in there, but during the middle, like the core years of college for me was watching YouTube and reading books. Like I was looking at real estate, like watching Grant Cardone. I was looking at like day trading. I was looking at marketing agency. It's one of the ones that I stumbled upon. And I kind of just read books and watched videos on them all, and eventually came to that conclusion of like, I was like, which one of these, I know real estate isn't going anywhere, but it's not something that I felt super passionate about. And I kind of accepted the fact, I was like, I don't have any fucking money. So what am I going to do in real estate?
Right.
And didn't want to be like a real estate agent or do any of that shit. And then I stumbled upon the social media marketing side. I was like, this is something that I understand. Social media is something I've been using and I understand how to use from a very young age. I grew up in kind of that cusp, like the transition period. Like I didn't have a phone until I was 14, 15 years old, but then I got one and we got kind of the new age tech, the social media, all that stuff. So I understood it and it just made sense to me because I was going to school for business and marketing. And it was this intercept I realized, like I noticed a gap. I said, if the formal education system is going to teach all my peers how to design fucking flyers and about radio and TV ads, but I know that social media is going to be the future, then why don't I start a business to fill that void? And I start it now while they're all still learning this shit. So that's kind of what inspired me, I guess, to take it on seriously. And for the first couple of years, a lot of it was like, some people were receptive to it. Some were like, nah, like social media, we don't need it. We don't need it. We don't need it. And then now I'm talking to like established businesses that haven't been on social media. They're like, holy shit, we're behind. We got to get on social media. And then I'm able to kind of help them to create quality content. They don't have to understand social media. That's what I tell anybody that sits down with me in a meeting is like, because a lot of people are like, I don't know shit about this, or it's a lot of my clientele are older. Like some of the law firms I work with, like they're 40 to 50s, like older the next generation or my parents' generation, and they're like, I don't know this shit. And I always tell them, I was like, well, you don't have to know it. You just have to pay me to know it. And to me, that's kind of like how I fit myself into that gap. It was like I understood it and noticed that there was just not a lot, like there was going to be demand for it.
Yeah. I mean, shit, look at it now, dude. It's like, fucking people on TikTok, just filming some people like film absolutely nothingness, right? And it's like, how the fuck do you have millions of dollars and like millions and millions of followers? Like, it's social media, just like I said, absolutely blows my mind. And I like the way you put it. Like you said, if we hire you, it's, hey, you don't have to understand it, right?
Correct.
You just have to trust that I understand it and that I have your best interest at heart. And I get that a lot in the dog training world. Like, I'll go to people's houses and I can train the dog to do, sit, stay, like little things like this, but I don't know anything else about it. Okay, well, I've been doing this for 6+ years, right? I don't expect you to know what I know. I've done countless research. We've done countless seminars. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of trainers to like pick little things where I'm like, oh, like this trainer does this. I like that, but I don't like this, right? It's cool. Let me take the one thing that I like. I'm going to put it in my tool belt and I'm going to try to implement it in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's awesome. And social media, I think, has just taken off to an insane extent.
Well, the fact that you can just pick up a phone. Most people now, it's like, this is as good a camera as most people need.
Yeah.
Like, sure, I got these expensive multi-$1,000 rigs that I run for like certain clients and stuff, but I tell anybody that's just like friends of mine that are looking to start businesses and they want to create content and they come to me, they're like, dude, I can't afford a podcast studio or a big camera rig like you have. I'm like, you don't fucking need it. I started with this thing, like my phone. And a lot of these have a hell of a lot nicer cameras now than they did when I first started out.
For sure.
And it's like, just start somewhere and like start uploading content. But the mark that a lot of people miss is, unlike you, they do want that validation. They do want to feel important. They do want that status when it comes to their social media accounts and their presence. So a lot of times, without even knowing it, because they haven't taken the time to reflect on themselves and be self-aware enough to understand that that is their root intent. And if it is, and they don't recognize it or realize it, when they start creating content without knowing they're just creating all this content that's all about them. And it's like, it's completely the wrong way to go about it if you're doing it for a business. Like, if you're doing it for business, you're doing it to build an audience, to bring in customers, to do whatever, your content needs to entirely revolve around the questions and the answers that your customers are seeking. It doesn't matter what you think is cool or what you like to talk about. What matters is that it brings value in some regard to your customer, client, or whatever's life. So being able to understand, like, what are their questions? Like, you might be thinking, and a lot of times also is, sometimes I've always noticed over the course of my life, the smarter someone is on a certain given subject, sometimes the worse they are at teaching it to other people. And the reasoning that I've looked at that is because they have such an advanced knowledge of it that they don't even, like, it's just second nature to them to do the easy shit. But most people need the answers to how to do the easy shit. So it's like, you might have like advanced dog training techniques, maybe, but they're just like, how do I get them to stop grabbing food out of my hand?
Yeah.
And instead of making a video on how you would unprogram that, you can just create content about, like, hey, your dog's taking food out of your hand. Like, bring it out as like this, like, simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
And then you on the back end, then they're like, oh, this makes sense. Like, how do you do that? Then it opens the door for you to say, well, I have kind of a program. I have a way that I go about it. I'm happy to work with you or share some of the techniques that I have. Yeah.
And that's honestly the main reason people reach out, right? Very far and few between do I get like, hey, I just want a better dog. It's, hey, my dog is jumping, my dog's biting, he's pulling the leash, so on and so forth. They always have very specific requests, which every single dog is different. So that's why, like, I like the program that I have. And I wouldn't even call it a program, to be honest. It's more like you reach out to me and you tell me what you want. And then I come to your house. So I do in-home training. So I go to your house and we'll sit down for the first 20, maybe 30 minutes or something. I'll get all your information, your day-to-day, kind of, evaluate the dog a little bit while we're sitting there talking. And then you tell me what you want to fix. And then you and I come up with a plan right then and there to be like, all right, this is it, right? Because there's so many things I could be like, hey, I want to do this with your dog. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm probably not going to do it. Great. There is no point in me wasting your time and money. Then let's specifically gear it towards, exactly what you want. And one of the cool things, like with a lot of dog programs, they, you sign up, there's like board and trains, things like that, where it's like, hey, you sign up for 4 weeks and you pay a whole bunch of money, or even in-home, you sign up for 10 sessions and you have to pay all up front. I don't do that at all. I'm like, hey, you reach out to me, I'll come do the first session, which is like 2 hours long. I'll come do the first session and then we'll talk. And after that, you're like, hey, we kind of go on about our day, and then you'll reach back out to me and you're like, I just don't think this is going to work for me. That's fine. Like I said, there's not one way to do it. There's 1,000 ways to do it. I'm not going to waste your money. And in turn, you're not going to waste my time. Beautiful, right? No ill will. I hope that you find everything that you're looking for, which is totally fine. And that's why I don't do packages. It's not like, oh, you have to sign up for 5, for 10, for whatever. I'm not in it for the money. And like, it varies so much that I can't come up with a plan to be like this, where it's like, dude, some people are like, hey, if you just come in, get my dog to stop fucking jumping, and like, we don't ever have to talk again. Okay. You know what I mean? This is your dog. I'll do whatever you want with it. Like, I want more out of the dog, but it's not mine. Right. And that's like a big thing with trainers. Like, no, I want it to look good on camera. I want to be able to do this certain stuff with this specific dog so you can see. It's like, dude, if you don't want to do it, I don't care. Like I said, I'm here to help you. I'm a dog trainer, but a human trainer as well. Right. So like I said, and some people are like, hey, I want to be able to take my dog off leash to the beach and so on and so forth. Like, all right, cool. That's going to take me a little bit longer than one session, so I specify it and gear it towards exactly what the human wants. So if you're like, hey, I want off leash, training that we could go to the beach and do that kind of shit. Cool. Let's come up with a plan right there. And same thing. And like, I don't take payment until after the session, right? So I'll do the work, then you pay me. Like I said, Pittsburgh, blue collar, we have to trade something, right? So I don't take payment up front. I do the training, and then you pay me after the session. And you're like, you know what? I want to keep doing this. Great. Let's book another one, right? So say 2 weeks later, I'll come back for an hour, because I'll do the 2-hour initial, 1-hour follow-up. 2 weeks later, I'll come back. I'll fine tune anything that needs adjusted from the first session. Then I'll teach you more. Then you'll work on those things for 1, 2, 3 weeks, depending on schedules, however long it is. I'll come back for another hour, fine tune, train. And I'll take it as far as you want to go, right? But it's very human dependent. Like I said, I'm not in it for money. I charge very, very, very little for the success rate that it does have. And like I said, there's no issue with, hey, the way that you do things doesn't work for me. Okay. And like I said, I think this goes back to Eric Thomas. Like, I am who I am. You know what I mean? I've talked to like big companies, and like we did some stuff with some of these bigger companies, and they allowed dogs into their building that people could bring their dogs to work and stuff. So I've gone and like talked to these people. I'm like, you're making like $500,000 a year. What the heck you doing listening to me? But I'm not going to go in and I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to wear a tie. I'm not going to wear a shirt. I am going to wear this. Right. And I've never had an issue with it. But like I said, I think it just comes down to the fact that I am me, and that's just how it's going to be. I can adjust, right? So, we can modify certain things, but I'm not going to change who I am to appease somebody else. Find something else. I have no ill will, and I have no problem with that. Do whatever makes you happy, but I'm going to do the same.
I don't blame you. So why don't you tell the folks here, as far as like the locations, maybe talk a little bit. I know you're in a new area. Maybe just tell the audience where you're willing to work from, and then tell them where they can go ahead and get a hold of you and find you.
Yeah. So I live in Charleston. You can go, I honestly don't have a radius yet because we're still super new. As things develop, I will create more of a radius. Right now, I don't really have a radius. So if you hit me up and you're not like 6 hours away, there's a very high possibility I'll probably come do it. Obviously, once business takes off and stuff, that we'll have to minimize that. But you can go on the website, coastaldogtrainingsc.com. Check out the website. The Instagram, same thing, Coastal Dog Training SC. If you want to shoot me a message on Instagram, shoot me an email, shoot me whatever, pigeon, I don't really care. You know, however you want to get a hold of me. And like I said, maybe I'll come out here to Myrtle, get me like 3-4 clients for a day. I'll drive out here to Myrtle and do it. You know, like I said, I love helping dogs. I love working with people. And it's really cool because I get to meet so many different people, which like you were kind of touching on, you know, like I've worked with professional athletes, lawyers, doctors, nurses, part-time people, like you name it. It's such a broad spectrum. NFL, NHL, like it's just so crazy to see all these different lifestyles and stuff. And that's why I like doing the in-homes. I like going to people's houses and seeing the way they operate with the dogs, seeing their lifestyle, seeing, you know, how they kind of do. And we fix the issue there, right? Because if you bring me your dog, there's a good chance that your dog's not going to do 90% of stuff that the dog does for you if I take them and bring them to my house, right? So I like going to people's houses. I like fixing the problem there because what I've seen over time is there's a good amount of time that if I take your dog and then you get the dog back, you go back to your lifestyle, right? You just go do your lifestyle. And then the dog will continuously, slowly start regressing. And you're like, what the hell is happening, right? Because the dog's used to training with me in my environment. So you bring the dog back to me, bam, spot on, does everything, right? But when it goes back to your house, there's sometimes maybe a little more leeway, unclear communication, whatever it may be. So I love going to people's houses. So shoot me a message on Instagram. Go on the website.
I'll get the links from you too. I'll put the links below, and really appreciate you making the trip, man.
Dude, hell yeah. Thanks for having me, man. This has been fun. This is my very first podcast I've ever done. This is on my bucket list. So thank you for helping me check that off.
Yeah, man, for sure.
This was cool. I love it.
I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man.